Welcome to Breaking the Line, the ECNL Podcast, a bi-weekly look at all things related to the growing Elite Clubs National League, the ECNL. For more information on the ECNL, visit us at www.theecnl.com. Now, here's your host for Breaking the Line, the ECNL Podcast, former U.S. Soccer press officer and longtime soccer broadcaster, Dean Linke.
I am Dean Linke. This is Breaking the Line, the ECNL Podcast. I love soccer. Believe it or not, I love basketball just as much. Christian Lavers, the CEO and president of ECNL, has made me a happy man as this week's ECNL Podcast, Breaking the Line, will feature Grant Hill, two-time national champion at Duke, multiple All-American, on Dream Team 3, played in the NBA forever, still considered one of the all-time best, NBA analyst, college basketball analyst, and more importantly, Christian Lavers, he's an ECNL dad. What's he bringing today to the show?
You know what? He brought such a great perspective in talking about his background playing soccer, believe it or not, the impact that had on his basketball career, the perspective of one of the elite athletes in the world talking to his daughters about sport and what they should consider and what he looks out for them, and then just looking back on all things leadership and team culture, building championship teams. A wonderful, wonderful discussion with a lot of variety.
All right, it comes up after this message from the ECNL.
As the game continues to evolve in the United States, the ECNL remains the standard of excellence in youth soccer. The Elite Clubs National League has grown to include over 200 clubs and nearly 50,000 players across the country, with a robust competition platform for teams, educational resources for coaches and clubs, and unparalleled identification and development opportunities for players. Alongside its member clubs, collaborating to create a better future, the ECNL continues to raise the game every day. The ECNL is more than a league. Welcome back to Breaking the Line, the ECNL Podcast. Once again, here's Dean Linke.
It is my pleasure to turn it over to the ECNL President and CEO, Christian Lavers, who gets the first two sessions with the great Grant Hill. Take it away, Christian.
Thanks, Dean. I appreciate it. Grant, it's awesome to have you here with us. A real pleasure and a privilege. So thanks for taking the time to talk to us about everything we're going to touch on today, your career, soccer, basketball, and everything in between.
I appreciate it, Christian. I'm an ECNL parent, but also a huge soccer fan and a former soccer player many, many years ago. So I'm excited to be here with you today.
So just a little backstory. We were just down in Florida, obviously, for an ECNL event, and a good friend of ours, Hugh Menzies, the former Jamaican women's national team coach, said, hey, Grant Hill's out, helping make this event work, volunteering. First of all, thank you so much for doing that. I mean, there's thousands of parents around the country that help out their soccer clubs and these events. And so first of all, we appreciate your help and willingness just to put some sweat equity in to help and make our event in Florida a success.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. It was funny. A year ago at that same event, my wife and I, we were field marshals. And so it was great to sort of watch these young women play and all the coaches from the different schools, Division 1, 2, and 3, there to watch and observe and ultimately recruit some of these young women. And so, field marshal was great. You just kind of oversee things and make sure things are running smoothly and people are where they're supposed to be. And then we were late this year for sign up. So there was parking duty and bathroom duty. And so my wife said, I'm not doing parking or bathroom. And so I ended up signing up for the early shift. So I had to arrive at 6:30 in the morning. And I was there till about 9:30. But it was funny, the parking lot where I was stationed was right by the porta potties. So it looked like I was doing both bathroom and parking. And but it was fun. And, it's always exciting to see the parents and the teams from all over the country and also some of the college coaches who were there in town. And a couple times, though, parents were like, are you Grant Hill? I had my mask on, but they still kind of could recognize me. I think they were in shock and in disbelief that I was working parking duty. But I had fun. It was good. It was a fun time.
And you say, yes, I am. And please move on and park, please. Stop slowing down this traffic.
Exactly.
So you mentioned earlier, you have a little background in soccer, I think. And before I ask you about that, I'm going to say, rumor has it at one point, you had the potential ability to do a soccer rainbow against the backboard and then try and dunk. I think I saw that somewhere. So I'm going to throw that at you and let you talk a little bit about your soccer background.
Yeah, well, the rumor is correct. So I grew up in the D.C. area, and Northern Virginia back in the late 70s, early 80s was a hotbed for soccer. Used to go to the Diplomats games at RFK Stadium, played travel soccer, played for the 1972 Flying Tigers. And I grew up, I wanted to be Pele, and as I got older and I realized the chance of me being Pele was not going to happen, I decided I wanted to be Dr. J. But I did play travel soccer. We won the state championship a number of times, not because of me, but because I was on a good team. I was left wing, left footed. We played at the Robbie in Canada, went to the Oakville tournament. I mean, we got around back in the day, and I officially retired from soccer in 1986. That's when I went to high school. And it was really funny. The high school varsity coach, I started high school, I was young, I was 13. And the varsity coach brought me in before the basketball season. And he said, look, I've been watching you play, and I think I want to bring you up to varsity and play varsity. And the first thing I said was, well, the varsity season goes longer than the freshman season, and it'll overlap with soccer in the spring. And so I don't want to do it. And then, of course, he talked me into it, and I never played soccer again. But I did know how to, I can definitely, I can't do it now because my ankles are arthritic, but I could, in the high school slam dunk contest, I used to stand at the free throw line and do a rainbow, and I would, do it high enough off the glass and then go up and dunk it. And so that was very unique. And I don't know if I've seen anyone do that since, but that was my claim to fame and the very few high school slam dunk contests that I participated in.
Well, I'll tell you, I've never heard of that before. I think if I tried that, I'd probably end up with some combination of a face plant and and some other sort of fall down. But no, that's cool. It's unique to play two different sports and to do it and to learn things that help in one sport that may make you a more informed athlete or a better decision maker in another sport. Did you see that when you, I mean, obviously you left soccer in high school, but do you see how playing both helped you? Was there something that you connected the dots when you were playing basketball that you look back at soccer saying that made me a better basketball player?
No question. I mean, I think, one of the things in soccer, you're forced to see the field. If you play soccer the right way, and I was fortunate. I had a really good coach, during those travel soccer teams. But being able to see the floor, being able to make quick decisions, being able to anticipate where people may be, I think it really transferred and translated over into basketball. And, just sort of taking that same sort of focus. Because, basketball, there's fewer players, and you can have a tendency to just sort of see the basket and play by yourself, play in a silo, if you will. And certain players play that way. But, I fancied myself as someone who was unselfish, who could see the floor, understood, who could anticipate things happening before they happen. And I think a lot of that sort of foundationally came from, sort of that grassroots at a very young age, playing the game of soccer. I learned later on, I went into the Hall of Fame in 2018, and two of my really good friends, Jason Kidd, who, we were in the same draft class, 1994. We were both rookies of the years together in 1995, and we both retired within 24 hours of each other in 2013. He grew up playing soccer. And then Steve Nash, who was my teammate, he probably could have played professionally. He's that good. He played soccer as well. And I think we all had some similarities in terms of how we approached the game, how we saw the game, how we were able to sort of facilitate, think the game on a holistic level. And I think soccer really played a huge role in that. And so, one of the fun things for me was I played and I kind of got away from it, went into high school, college, NBA. And then when I went out to Phoenix, Steve Nash, who, loves soccer, puts on a big soccer event every year in New York in the summer. Leandro Barbosa, who was from Brazil, and obviously soccer is a huge sport there. We had a couple of guys who were into it. So we would juggle on the court together. And then our owner of the Phoenix Suns, Robert Sarver, he had three boys who at the time were in elementary school, and they were avid soccer players. And Robert had a big old house in Paradise Valley, like 7 acres, and had a soccer field in his backyard and with goals and everything. And so we would go over there in the off season and play soccer. And it would be 7 of us on the team against, 12 kids out there playing soccer barefoot. And so really that time in Phoenix got me, reintroduced to the game and playing the game. I hadn't played in forever. And getting a chance to get back out there was a lot of fun. And there's definitely carryover from the game of soccer to basketball. And I think it really helped me see the game, feel the game, and be inclusive in the game with the ball in my hands and being able to play with other guys.
To go back a little bit, when you were negotiating, I'll use that word, when you were negotiating with your high school basketball coach about how the season ended so you could play soccer,
right.
It sounds like that's not a guy who's saying, hey, I'm going to be a professional basketball player. That's a young kid who's playing a bunch of different things and trying to figure out life. When did you first decide that you wanted to be a pro athlete, or when did you recognize that you might have the ability to play at the highest level? Because it sounds like at that point you were loving everything.
Yeah, really for me, my dad was a professional football player, played in the NFL for 12, 13 years. So I grew up around sports, always wanted to play football. He wouldn't let me play until I was in high school. So, the plan was always, when I got to high school, I'd try to play football. My first sport, my first love was soccer. And that's what I played, from the age of 5. I picked up basketball, maybe a little bit later. I played AAU basketball right before high school. And we played in a national tournament, against other guys, Chris Webber, Jamal Mashburn, guys who went on and played in the NBA. We were all 13 years old at the time. And our team won the national championship. I was All-America. I thought I should have been MVP, but I was All-America for the tournament. My teammate got the MVP. But I think that experience really kind of just gave me confidence, knowing that against the other best players in the country, that I held my own and at times dominated. And so I think at that point, I realized, okay, I had a chance in basketball. I was good in soccer. I was on a really good team. I don't know if at that point if I felt like I was as good in soccer as I was in basketball. I was left-footed. I was fast. I was pretty good with the ball. Obviously on corner kicks, crosses, I'm tall, so I could, get the headers and all that. Terrible on penalty kicks. But I think then I kind of, that was when the transition began. And then I was apprehensive about playing varsity, in part because I wanted to continue soccer. But also I was 13. When I had this conversation with my coach, I was 13 years old. And the idea of being around 16 and 17-year-olds was just foreign. This was 1986. And, I wanted to play on the freshman team, who, by the way, ended up going and being undefeated that year without me. And so they were really good. But I played varsity. I started as a freshman. I averaged 10, 11 points, and then went back to the AAU tournament the next year. And we lost in the finals to the same team. But I was so dominant that I got the MVP. And so I made sure I got the MVP. But I think that period, like that time frame, was when obviously playing basketball as a varsity player, playing in AAU prior to high school, it was like, well, I have a chance to maybe play in college. The pros, like that wasn't even on the horizon. It was, maybe playing in college, going to Georgetown, going to the ACC. Those were the things that I was sort of thinking about and dreaming about at that time.
Of course, as I told you guys earlier, 2-time national champion, multiple-time All-American, All-ACC Player of the Year at Duke. It's funny you mentioned your dad. My best friend is what I call a double D. He's a Dallas Cowboy fan and a Duke Blue Devil fan. So there's not a week goes by where he doesn't say, oh, yeah, well, Grant Hill, his dad played for the Cowboys, and he was awesome for sure, Grant.
Yeah, no, look, my dad played for the Cowboys. I was born in Dallas. We moved to D.C. when I was 4 years old. He played for the Redskins, and my parents still reside there. But it was really difficult growing up in DC as a Cowboy fan. And my claim to fame was, my parents were expecting a girl. And obviously back then, you weren't able to find out the sex of your unborn child. And so obviously I'm not a girl. And my dad, they had all these girls' names picked out. So Roger Staubach, who was a teammate of my father's, he came by the hospital and really he named me. He was the one that came up with my name. And I'm named after my paternal grandmother's maiden name. And her last name was Grant. And so If it wasn't for Roger Staubach, I'd still be Baby Boy Hill 50 years later. But that was why I was a Cowboy fan. Roger Staubach, who was still playing at the time for the Cowboys, he named me. So, I've been a loyal, faithful Cowboy fan. It's been a rough stretch here, but definitely Duke and Dallas. Those are my allegiances.
That's the combo. All right, we're going to take a break. Baby Boy Hill went on to be one of the all-time greats in the NBA. He's one of the all-time great analysts as well. And guess what, folks? Grant Hill's on Breaking the Line, the ECNL Podcast. Back with more after this.
ECNL Boys is partnering with Puma for the second year, driving sport forward with the leading products and the next generation of pros who wear them. Puma has proven themselves as the fastest sports brand in the world, the fastest innovation, the fastest players, and the fastest products in the game. They're the perfect partner to complement the speed and talent of our teams. In keeping with their mantra of forever faster, Puma introduces the world's fastest boot, the Ultra. The only boot engineered for speed, the Ultra combines a woven upper with a lightweight outsole for direct forward motion, speed, and acceleration. It's the best in the game, designed for the best players in the game. Soccer.com is proud to partner with the ECNL to support the continued development of soccer in the U.S. at the highest levels. We've been delivering quality soccer equipment and apparel to players, fans, and coaches since 1984. Living and breathing the beautiful game ourselves, our goal at Soccer.com is to inspire you to play better, cheer louder, and have more fun. Visit Soccer.com today to check out our unmatched selection of gear, expert advice, and stories of greatness at every level of the game.
Welcome back to Breaking the Line, the ECNL Podcast. I'm like a kid in a candy store. Grant Hill is here. Christian Lavers is the president, CEO of ECNL. Christian, you're with Grant Hill. Take it away, my man.
So much to talk about here. I'll fast forward now to the present. As a father of young daughters and young athletes, and considering, the lineage, your father playing in the NFL, you playing in the NBA, what matters most to you about the experience of your daughters in sports?
Wow, that's a great question. So, as you said, Bess, I felt the pressure of having a father who, was a professional athlete, and obviously we were in different sports, but there was just an expectation that you were going to be good, and there were also people gunning for you as well. And so, I felt that I was able to obviously go on and have success, but I've never tried to put any pressure on my girls, and with going and playing in college or playing professionally, I love that they have tried different sports. Well, one tried multiple sports. One is just strictly soccer. But I think for girls who become young women, the experience of sports and the values that come from team sports, there's so many life lessons that are applicable. And I experienced that. I experienced it, in college, in high school, the ultimate level in professional sports. And to me, that's what it's all about. And learning how to, handle success and manage failure and, hard work, collective responsibility. You can go on and on about all these values. And, you learn things in the classroom, which are so important. But those type of interactions, those life lessons that sport and particularly soccer teach you, I think goes with you. And, I get it. Every parent thinks their child is the next Alex Morgan, and you see that. And you obviously want your child, and you dream about your child going on and having success. But sometimes you have to sort of, take a step back and understand what's really important. And, a lot can and will happen. I understand with young athletes, and the environment's very different than when I was coming of age. And I also learned with girls. I had my daughter, my 19-year-old who's in college now, she was on the path for basketball, and she started playing basketball in 7th grade, played in high school, was on a team that was nationally ranked. And then right before her senior year, she decided she didn't want to play anymore. And she was being recruited by some Division II schools. And it just wasn't in her heart. And so, and we knew that. And we weren't surprised by that decision. But we are glad that she got that experience. She was able to learn from playing soccer, playing softball when she was young, playing on the golf team in middle school, playing basketball. All of that, I really believe, is invaluable. And now with us, my wife's a recording artist. She's an R&B singer and has her own career. And so the last thing we want to do is make them feel like they have to be a pro or be an elite soccer player for us to be happy and fulfilled with what they do. We love everything that they do, good and bad, but we're always mindful. Our youngest one is pretty talented. She has a chance. She's 13. She's she's 14 and under. She's in 7th grade. She's really passionate now. Like she was really, really good. And she's athletic. She's strong. She's skilled. And I always was like, well, at some point she may decide she doesn't want to do it anymore, so I don't put pressure on her or anything like that. But I'd say within the last 6 months, like it's really become something like that she's really passionate about. And she's, hey, Dad, let's go train. And I'm like, I'm going online, looking up drills on YouTube and trying to throw different things at her. But I never want to pressure her. Like that's got to come from within. Like you got to want it. You got to be passionate about it. No one had to tell me to go play basketball. My mom used to tell me, Grant, stop dribbling the ball in the house, or stop banging against the wall and stop juggling in my kitchen, and so my wife, who's a singer, no one had to tell her to work on her craft. And so, with kids, they have to want it, not the parents wanting it more than them. But it's interesting because my daughter now is starting to dribble the ball in the house and juggle and, kick the ball against the refrigerator. And now we're yelling at her. And so you can see that it's really blossoming and it's kind of fun to watch.
That's a wonderful perspective. And it's a really important one. Do you think sport during the last 6 months, sport during COVID has had any impact on that? I mean, with so much else changing, did the constancy or the presence of sport and soccer play a role in that at all? Or what role did sport play for her the last 6 months?
It may have played a role. I mean, I think we all sort of, particularly for, girls who are sort of at that, middle school age, which can be tricky at times. I think for them as they're sort of, finding their independence and sort of transitioning from into becoming an adolescent, it's been tough this whole past year, or almost a year, and everything coming to a halt. Not being able to sort of, at least early on in COVID, socially interact in person. Everybody's online and digital and Snapchat and whatever, all the different social media platforms. But, I think sports gives you a sense of belonging and gives you a sense of community. And I think kids at that age really desire that. And I think socially things have been impacted. And so I think sports gives you the socialization, but also gives you, sort of that sense of belonging to something bigger than yourself. So I think for her, I think it's one sort of to help pass the time, it's to entertain yourself. I'm sitting here looking outside and I remember just, back in April and May and, and back in, June, like just her out juggling and, working on trying to do a rainbow and, sitting, kicking the ball against the wall. All like to me, that's when you're willing to sort of, put the time in like that, not training necessarily, not where you're going and working with a coach, but you're just by yourself using your imagination. Like, I think that's important. And I think that tells me, okay, like she really loves this. She really likes this. And, I remember, and I'm just, sort of using my own my own experience as a frame of reference, getting the ball and just dribbling in the street and using my imagination, like spending time by yourself working at your craft because you love it. Like that's something you can't make. That either you have it or you don't. And so, I don't know if it's just a natural sort of progression for her or if sort of everything else coming to a halt, really soccer became her safe haven and really became her friend. And that really kind of helped spark, light a spark. But regardless, it's fun. It's fun to watch and it keeps them busy. It's like they're focused. They know they got to train and work and be ready for practice or be ready for the games. And so, keeping them busy as a parent is also a good thing as well.
I got 3 boys aged 3, 2, and 1. So I'm in the survival mode of keeping them busy as well right now.
You're in the trenches.
That's true. Looking a little bit back now to your career, I mean, you played for so many different coaches, from college to the dream team to multiple NBA places. What qualities stood out to you that made the best coaches effective? And do you have any moments where a conversation with a coach or a relationship with a coach really changed your career or changed your perspective on something?
You get to a certain level of success, and obviously there are people who've been there to help you and support you and guide you along the way. And I've been fortunate to have, great coaches. My high school coach, Wendell Bird, who really kind of pushed me along and was pretty innovative in terms of allowing me as a big guy to play point guard and do some things that at the time, most big guys weren't really, weren't expected or asked to do. And so that really helped develop, I think, sort of my all-around game, if you will. Obviously in college, I played for legendary coach Mike Krzyzewski. And I think as a coach, he's a tremendous leader. And, I like to say he's a tremendous leader who happens to coach basketball. I think a couple of things that have come from my experience and probably I appreciate more so now as I reflect. Looking back, being a little older, a little wiser, but coach is a relationship coach. He takes the time to sort of understand, his players, and which is a little tricky now because in college basketball, a lot of one and done players, so it's more of a revolving door. But it's not a cookie cutter approach, that he applies. Like it's really understanding the personalities of each player, how to motivate, how to inspire, how to teach, how to get the message across. So much of it is there's a tactical side to coaching, and that goes for any sport. Like you can understand strategy, but if you don't have belief, if you don't have people who believe in you and believe in your vision and believe in your strategy, then that it won't work. And so being able to I guess to sell to sell athletes on what you believe is best for the team and for them is so important. And that's his strong point. And being able to understand, each individual and then how to sort of communicate to them what's necessary for success. Actually, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, and X and O's and strategy, like that's not really his strong point. His strong point is getting a group to come together as one. And when you have that, and you combine, obviously talent and skill and all the other, like now you have when the sum of the parts are greater than the whole, then you have something special. And being able to foster that kind of environment, that kind of sense of brotherhood, and in our case, sisterhood in women's sports, where everyone's one of the things that was really important was communication. And, I was a quiet, cerebral kind of player. I didn't speak. I was kind of to myself. I was kind of shy, a little bit awkward, maybe because I started, I was so young, so every year in school, I was always the youngest in class. So, I was a little socially awkward. And so one of the things he stressed, and he would kick you out of practice if you didn't do, was you had to talk. And what talking does, it obviously keeps everybody connected. It empowers your teammates. It's intimidating when you go out there on the court or on the pitch and you see a team that you're playing against and they're talking. And it's incredible. It also keeps you out of your own funk. It keeps you out of your own head. So much of sports is up here. When you get in the zone, and you can be in the zone in any sport, it's when you're so present. And a lot of times you're thinking about what just happened. Oh, so-and-so didn't pass me the ball. Or, the coach doesn't like me, or, the ref just missed that call, or, oh, I know I'm going to come out this, at the end of the first quarter, or, so, whatever. You start thinking about what just happened or what might happen. But talking forces you to stay present. It forces you to stay in the moment. And that's one of the things that he really emphasized and really hit on was talk. And if you went to a practice, it would sound like they're over talking. It would sound like, whoa, what's going on here? But it was creating habits, like every day. Yes, we're going to compete. We're going to play hard. We're going to, master the fundamentals. but we are going to talk. Like that is a definite. And to me, it becomes part of what makes you successful. And what I learned is as I went on into the NBA, and unfortunately I didn't have the championship success in the NBA that I had in college. I played on some really good teams though. But if you notice the good teams, like the really good teams, they communicated, they talked, they were in sync. They may not have always liked each other. You can go down the history and look at teams in basketball, but they were together. And so one of the things I always try to impress upon my daughters is just like talk, just when you're out there on the field, because it gets you out of your own head. And it's a selfless thing to do. Not talking is selfish. Talking, you're giving to the group. I know sometimes, like, I feel like I'm like my dad. My dad would give me basketball advice from a football player's perspective. And sometimes I'm scratching my head like, that doesn't make any sense. And so it's maybe sometimes my daughter is looking at me like, you're a basketball player, you don't know anything about soccer. But I do think communication is huge for so many reasons, a few of which I mentioned.
I like the phrase, the mouth is window to the mind.
Yeah.
Because you can't talk unless you're present.
No
and
question.
When you're not talking, your mind is either past or future a lot. Another thing that jumped to me, I think, was Vince Lombardi, who said that, to your point about tactics, at the highest level, everybody's pretty good as a coach at tactics. That's not going to separate you. It's going to be man management. It's going to be motivation, whatever, personal relationships. That's really, really interesting to hear. One more question for you. Oh, we could go on forever, as you know, but we'll respect your time here. But you're currently working on NBA TV. You're an owner of the Atlanta Hawks. How do you look at sport differently now from the perspective of a broadcaster or an owner compared to being a player? Did something change in the lens when you watch basketball now or watch any other sport with this different perspective?
Yes. I mean, I think, first of all, I love now that I can continue working in sports. And I have many roles and responsibilities in sport and giving back to the sport, being around the sport. You mentioned, ownership, that perspective, now, sort of being a steward of that franchise and, running the business side, but also the basketball, providing oversight, strategic direction, vision, hiring good people, that role, that perspective. Then in television, now you're sort of an analyst. So you're seeing the game and giving back to the game in a way that's fun. It's edifying. It's a natural sort of progression from playing in a lot of ways. I'm also I'm a board of governors of the NCAA, which, as we look at intercollegiate athletics across the board, now having sort of that fiduciary responsibility to help the NCAA as it's attempting to evolve. I do see things differently now. I think first of all, my experience helps me see from a different perspective. Not everybody necessarily who's an owner.
The athlete.
Yeah, not everybody understands sort of the perspective of an athlete. But then when you get on the other side, and now you can kind of look back at what it's like to be a student athlete, what it's like to be a professional athlete. You see things differently. And so it's been great. Like I've really enjoyed continuing to work in sport in a number of different ways. And it just helps me to continue to grow, have a healthy respect and an appreciation for, all the sort of moving parts that allow these athletes to go out and perfect their sports. But I also know it's a huge responsibility and something that I don't take lightly and something that I'm grateful for the opportunity to work in.
We're here with Grant Hill. We're going to take one more break and come back. Grant promised a little basketball talk, so I'm all in as well. Grant Hill, right after this. This is Breaking the Line, the ECNL Podcast.
Nike is a proud sponsor of ECNL Girls. Nothing can stop what we can do together to bring positive change to our communities. You can't stop sport because #you can't stop our voices. Follow Nike on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. From athletes just starting to turn heads to some of the best athletes to ever play their games, Gatorade shows that they are the proven fuel of the best. For the athletes who give everything, nothing beats Gatorade, the studied, tested, and proven fuel of the ECNL.
Welcome back to Breaking the Line, the ECNL Podcast. I'm your host, Dean Linke. Christian Lavers, the president and CEO of the ECNL. He has booked a big-timer, Grant Hill, a college legend, an NBA legend, and now I think one of the best analysts in the game as well. So, Grant, I want to start with that because you have been featured prominently in college basketball and featured prominently in NBA. Is there one or the other that you like to analyze better?
You know, it's a great question. I mean, I love them both. The NBA, you know, for us, for me, I get to helicopter into college basketball at the best time of the year, March Madness. And so, you know, it's a nice little departure from, you know, the everyday grind of the NBA to sort of helicopter in right during March Madness, work with Jim Nance, Bill Raftery, call the NCAA tournament, of course, the Final Four. So I fell in love with basketball watching the Final Four, 1982 Final Four, when Michael Jordan hit the shot against Georgetown as a freshman and really propelled his career. That's when I fell in love and first started getting interested in basketball. And so to still now work around the Final Four and like it's just, I don't want to disrespect the NBA because I am an owner in the NBA, but the college tournament is certainly a lot of fun and something I really, truly enjoy.
One of the biggest moments in the college tournament was your pass to Christian Laettner. How many times have you been asked that question, and where does that rate with all-time great moments?
Yeah, incredible moment. It's something we get to relive every year in March. And, you know, it's funny. Every time I see it, I still get nervous. Like, I don't know the result. Like, that's what's crazy. But just an iconic moment that I'm grateful that I played a part in. And I'm grateful Christian caught it and made the shot. I'm even more grateful for that. The only thing I'm not grateful for is, you know, my bad haircut, you know, and so it just pays to not be too trendy when you're young. You know, you'll regret it later in life.
on that play, that's my one basketball question, Dean. Apparently that was not an improvised moment. You guys had practiced that or you had planned for that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, 2 points on that are really important and I think speak to the greatness of Coach K. First of all, we worked on the baseball pass every day in practice. We didn't work on that specific play, but every day, everyone had to make a couple of baseball passes as part of our warm-ups. So it wasn't like we've never made that pass. It's part of our, you know, core values in a way. And, you know, in that moment, I guess Coach knew that I was probably the most accurate from all the passes we made in practice. I used to joke that, you know, I would have been a quarterback and it was in the genes. And so, you know, that's the first thing, you know, having that foundation, having those fundamentals that you work on. And then 2, in that moment, we're down 1, it's 2.5 seconds left. We're coming to the huddle. Beautiful leadership from Coach K. In that moment, instead of telling me, Grant, you make the pass, he asked me, Grant, can you make the pass the full length of the court? And I said, yes. And so in asking me that and getting me to answer, like I'm taking ownership. I'm saying I'm going to do it. I got it, you know? And of course he goes to Christian and says, can you make the shot? And Christian says, if Grant makes the pass, I'll make the shot. And that was typical Christian Laettner. And so that was pretty much it. But I do believe in how he approached that situation. It felt like Sean Woods hits the shot. I'm thinking as I'm walking to the huddle, I guess it's over. I'll be in Myrtle Beach next week, you know, with all my classmates for Beach Week. I won't be at the Final Four. And so that was what was going through my mind. Like, I guess I'll go to Myrtle Beach. And in that moment, hey, Grant, can you make that pass? And I said I could. And Christian said he'll make this. And like literally like we walked out of that, I felt like we're going to win. And so sometimes in those moments, you know, being able to get your athletes to say that they're going to do something is really empowering.
See, Grant, anytime you hook up with a Christian at any level, it's going to be big time, including today. I've just got 3 more quick ones for you, and we'll let you go. In the ECNL and in the women's college game, there's a lot of injuries. During your career, you had some major injuries that you were able to overcome. Have you talked to your kids about injuries and how to deal with that?
It's a great question. And, you know, it's finding some balance, you know, and my daughter who, you know, my wife who's, you know, we've been playing ECNL now for 3 years, and my wife is like, well, she should be training. She should be doing this. And, you know, I'm like, well, you know, she's 10. Like, let's let her have some balance here and let her have some fun. But, I think now that she's becoming more passionate about it, just trying to mix it up, and I'm very cognizant of that. I'm very much aware. I don't want to, hinder her development. I don't want to push her. And so like, I'll give you an example. Like tonight, we're starting conditioning, and for her first practice. And she was asking me yesterday, like, Dad, can we go do something before practice? And I said, you played indoor on Saturday. Your coach says that you're in pretty good shape. You've been training during the off season. Maybe we should not do anything on tonight. Maybe we should just, because you're going to go hard today, you're going to go hard tomorrow. And so just, always aware of that. And, I don't want to project my stuff on her, but I just want her to be smart about it. And for the most part, she is. And there's a certain amount necessary to be able to play at a high level. But, you don't want to do too much. And so, as she continues on, we'll just continue to monitor that. But, I'm of the, I come from the background or the philosophy of less is more. And you're going to get enough in practice and enough in your games. And so as long as you have a baseline going in, then, you should be fine. But she's had every injury. She's played with a cast, with a soft bubble, and, she's hurt her foot. I mean, she's definitely a hill. And and so, her thumb, I mean, she's a physical player. And so, but that's part of the game.
All right, we got you on. We got to ask you this. So we've got three greats in a room: Grant Hill, LeBron James, and Michael Jordan. Who's the greatest of all time, Grant Hill? Who's the greatest?
Well, aside from myself, I think they're both. I mean, I just, you can go either way. I probably would go with Michael, but I mean, certainly there's something you can't go wrong, but I think Michael's just a little bit a notch above, and there's no disrespect or slight towards LeBron because he's absolutely incredible. But, Michael Jordan, what he did, his impact, his dominance, I mean, it's just incredible. And I had a chance to watch and witness and play with, against both of them. And so I have definitely a great perspective, but I'm going with MJ. Even though he went to Carolina, I got to go with Jordan.
All right, well, let's end with this. You mentioned all of these great NBAers that are great soccer players. I can't remember if you mentioned the late, great Kobe Bryant, but he was pretty legit as well. He was a heck of a soccer player and loved the game.
He did. Kobe, having grown up in Italy during his formative years, was introduced to the game, and obviously soccer so big over there. And so, he loved it. He was a fan of it. You have pictures and images of him, going over and interacting with soccer players, juggling. I never really talked to Kobe about his love of soccer, but I would imagine that, it played a role in his development. It's so sad, about almost a year ago, of his untimely death. And but for someone who didn't, obviously, live an entire life, or live to old age, really was able to accomplish a lot and impact people with his excellence. And so his legacy will certainly live on forever.
Perfect, Grant. These final 30 seconds, so many people look up to you for inspiration, and it doesn't have anything to do with basketball. Even your own kids look up to you. We've gone through this pandemic. There's social injustice. Hopefully the political climate will get better. But what are your words of inspiration for young kids that might be watching today about overcoming adversity?
Yeah, I mean, I think, adversity, unfortunately, is a part of life. I think, once again, the values from sport. We can take soccer. The beautiful thing in sport is that it brings people together. We can be fans. We can have different ethnicities. We can have different beliefs, political ideologies. We can have different, religious beliefs, but we can both be fans of a team. And so sports can bring people together, and also on the pitch, people, different backgrounds, different experiences. But you come together and you form a team, and you can learn about other people through sport and being teammates. And so I feel like we're creating leaders of the future. And I think the role of sport and the role of soccer, regardless if, kids go on to become the next Mia Hamm or what have you, have a chance to really learn from those values and be leaders in the midst of, some challenging times that we're going through right now.
I'm going to leave it with that, Christian Lavers. He ended by saying on the pitch, not on the basketball court. He said on the pitch. That's what it's all about.
Hey, Grant, we really appreciate your time. This was a fabulous conversation, man. So enlightening, so much good perspective. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us, and appreciate you being an ECNL dad as well.
Oh, well, thank you both. I appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the parking garage, in the parking lot at the next ECNL showcase.
Amen to that.
The great Grant Hill. This has been Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast with one of the great all times ever, Grant Hill.
Thanks for listening to Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast. For more information on the ECNL, visit us at www.theecnl.com. And if you have a suggestion for the show or a great idea for a guest, please email us at info@theecnl.com. Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast is an ECNL production. ECNL, more than a league.